Morning, people. So what I'm doing now is getting ready to can the rest of my sauce. I already filled up 3 small Tupperwares full of the remaining meatballs and sausage. Right now, I'm sure there's a couple more hiding in here, but I'm just warming this up because you don't want to put cold sauce in hot jars. So I fished out what I could. Anything left I'll get later on. But look at that sauce. Oh man, was this so good. Look at that. Oh. You guys don't know. But anyway, this is what we're doing. There's always something going on in our household. So, as you can see, I have 7 quart jars coming up to temperature. I'm going to boil these to sterilize them for 15 minutes once they come to a raging boil. And after that, we will take the steps necessary to get the hot sauce, which is heating up, into these jars. Stay tuned. So now, just want to say one of the reasons I do this is because, as opposed to, first off, I don't think a dishwasher is sterile enough to do these jars right prior to canning. That's my opinion. Second is, I don't like the idea of putting them in the oven to heat up and preheat because they won't hold the heat long enough. You can still get a cracked jar if your sauce is too hot and your jar cools a little too soon or too much. So I'll show you in a second what I'm going to do here. Okay, so now the last jar that I took out, I completely emptied the water. Now because the jar is so hot, that water, the residual, dries relatively quick. So what's going on here is I'm minimizing the handling of the jars by only using my jar grabber here at the top. And this thing works great. It's a little different one. And these jars will stay hot for an extreme long time. They will stay hotter than the sauce in the pot. So that works out well. I'm going to start filling these now to about 1 inch from the top, approximately. And then all I'm going to do is add some lemon juice, just like less than a tablespoon will be fine. You're just increasing the acidity a little bit just to be able to water bath can. If I was pressure canning, I probably wouldn't even put the lemon juice in. In fact, I've canned these just like this without lemon juice in the past and have had no problems, but I just kind of made it, as long as I have it, I use it. So that's it. So I'm gonna get these started to fill, and we'll go from there. So I'm using my deceased Aunt Annie's ladle. I love this ladle. I'm gonna do this while I'm filming. And I just got to be careful that I don't capture any meat that's left over. You know, there's still probably a few pieces of sausage floating around in here. It is a little bit tedious, but that's homesteading, man. And you don't have to fill the ladle too much. It's better to fill it a little less, do a few extra passes, than spill it all over the place. Now, a lot of people, especially beginners, I noticed that they try and squeeze out as much as they can in a jar. Don't get into that habit. That's a bad habit to get into. You get a lot of spillover, and during the canning process, you'll have what I call leaching, where you could get a siphoning effect of the sauces or whatever you're canning begins to go between the lid and the jar. The whole point of canning is to get the contents of the jar the same temperature as the water around it. So that's about how much I fill it right there. So now, what I do, just to keep my process repeatable, is I take one of these jars, empty it out. You can see that steaming hot. And I'll place this here. Now, I'll just take my funnel, go directly to that one. So that stores my dripping funnel. So now, I can move this out of the way. And after I do a few, I'll add my lemon juice, and then I'll grab my lid and ring, which is in hot water right here. Even though this year ball doesn't necessarily say you have to do this step, I still do it. I like the idea of softening up the little, I'll show you. There's an old one, but this little orange section here, I like the idea of softening that up with the warm water. And I do use these old lids. I save them for emergency canning in case I run out, but I also save them for dry canning. You never know, you fill in jars with rice or something like that. So here, I already got 2 done. On the 3rd. Doesn't take too long. Be patient. Alright, so I got all 7 of my jars filled. Now I'm just going to take my lemon juice. I know everybody measures it out. It's all we need. You don't need that much. A little less than a tablespoon. You don't even taste it. That's it. Nice and nice. So now I just take a wet paper towel, just go along each rim of the jar. Make sure there's nothing there that's gonna contaminate, or see, this one had one little drop right here. You can see it. And just, you don't want to compromise the seal at all. But I have never had a problem. See, there's just a little bit on there, you can see. Alright, so now I just take my little magnet, because that water is hot. It might be warm enough, but and all we're going to do is just place the lid right over. I'm going to get the next one, just because it's easier to do it like this and hold the camera. And again, these jars are staying extremely hot right here. So how I lay them out in this pot, I'm able to get a ring and a lid. You learn to save time, get a little efficient. Alright, so I'm gonna do the rest of these without the camera. Stand by. So now when you tighten these, you only want to go fingertip tight. So, you know, I'll hold the jar with my tool and just barely snug. That's all you need. I can't do that holding the camera, so you'll just have to try it yourself. So now all I'm doing is I snugged all the lids. Now I'm just putting these back into the hot water. Hopefully nothing cracks. In all my years, I've only had 1 jar of peaches crack, and that was because I brought the temperature up way too fast. My bad. But out of all these years, that's pretty good. And I don't know, I might have had 1 crack inside my pressure canner at some point, but I don't remember. All right, so you just kind of keep them apart. You don't want the jars necessarily touching each other. Now also, I see a lot of people, they poke around in the jars with their little tool or even the handle of, you know, a spoon or something like that to eliminate any bubbles inside. So they poke around inside the sauce and try and eliminate any bubbles. When something's liquidy like this, I don't see it as a big deal because the contents of the jar is going to boil just like the water is going to boil, and that's how you get the outgassing of the botulism spores and the different problems, bacterias and stuff like that. That's how they leach between the lid and the glass. That's why you don't over torque those lids. If you over torque them, you're trapping the contents, that bad bacteria inside. That's my dog on patrol over here. But anyway, I'm gonna return this to a boil and boil it for 35 minutes. Sorry about that, my dog wants to kill the mailman. But anyway, just to reiterate, people poke around in the sauce to get rid of the bubbles. It's gonna boil inside that jar anyway. If you're doing something thicker or meatier, things of that nature, maybe even the peaches or whatever contents can actually physically trap air bubbles, yeah, then poke around with something and get them bubbles out. But for this, not a big deal. Been doing this for, geez, I don't know, 20 years, whatever, but no problems here.